In India, if you say there is a 75 infant deaths or infant or children below 5 years die every year because of this bacterial infection. This bacteria can cause pneumonia, middle ear infections, meningitis, and many other invasive pneumococcal disease, what they call lung infections. If you want to use AI for different marketing strategies, psyche of customers, that is different. It can be readily doable.
Correct.
But a hard science and technology wise, people, industry like vaccines and biotherapeutics, it is slightly different ball game. But AI is much more powerful, useful, always as a positive effect for us also, for a vaccine development also. In India, there is always a burning desire to be good or the best in science and technology.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pharma Now. So today we have Dr. Ramesh Matur from Biological E Limited, and he leads R&D division for Biological E Limited. So let's have a word with him. Let's understand his journey. So what I understand, from a small village in like Warangal to 20 years in US, and now leading a complete R&D division for Biological E. It's like an amazing journey. So Dr. Ramesh, I really wanted to understand how you really started this, and do you really imagine when you were young to lead some kind of such kind of pharma company sometime in life?
That's an interesting question. Let me just make a small correction, if I may. Warangal is a big enough town.
Yeah,
okay.
Certainly.
So it's a town big enough that it's a regional center. It has its own university and good medical, hospital, government medical hospital, and so on. So I grew up in Warangal. From my childhood onwards, I always wanted to become a scientist.
Okay.
But I didn't know what a scientist would do. Always got impressed by local in Telugu language. It says that scientists, I'm translating into English, scientists discovered this. So I always wanted to know what scientists, how do they discover it? And so that's the inspiration that still carried on with me for a very long time. And like in India, many families, they want their kids to become an engineer or a doctor.
Yeah.
Even though I wrote MBBS entrance exams, by back of my mind was, if I get a seat, would I become a scientist, which is what I always wanted.
But you always wanted to be a scientist.
Scientist, yes.
Wow. Okay.
But I didn't know how to become a scientist at that time, because when I grew up, there were the information is very limited, and then there is no places where you go and then find information too. But from my childhood, my grandfather, who would always every day walk 3 kilometers to go to a central library, which was in Warangal. That's why I said it's not a village, it's a small town.
Sure.
And who would spend 2-3 hours reading all the books, newspapers, and then come home, have lunch, and then 3 o'clock he would go to a park of his friends and things. So we watching him. And then I started going to it at one point, visit these libraries, and then that had give me a government library, central library it used to be. They would have all the books to read, educate, self-educate, and things like that. That also gave me an opportunity outside the school to understand, what is out there in science, field of science. That's one part. But later I became, I finished my bachelor's in Warangal, in Kakadiya University, and then went to Usmania University doing, got into microbiology. There also, I always wanted to become, get into chemistry, do masters in chemistry.
Okay.
But by chance, but I was strong in biology also. So that's kind of thing, but it put me, I didn't get into chemistry, but I got a biology equally. So microbiology is the field that required high score in chemistry and biology, which I always wanted to do innately, but I didn't know how to do it, but that it happened by chance or by grace of God, it happened. So I got a seat in microbiology, finished my master's, and then one of the faculty suggested go do a PhD in CFTRI Mysore, which where I got a CSR scholarship, went there, did my PhD. Cut the story short, after PhD those days, the industry was not big enough in India to absorb the PhD. So India was churning out educated people, but there was no industry or academia giving jobs. So if you're doing well in your subject, the only way is to leave the country, do a postdoc, and then come back if you can. That was the stage in those
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
Many people in Indian Institute of Science and CFTRI Mysore were going abroad, either Europe or the US. So that's how I also went to Michigan State, did my first postdoc, and later at Ohio State University, second postdoc, and then started my industry career, pharma. So whatever I learned in India also helped me very well in the US in my industry career.
Okay.
So in India again, the way I come back, it's always you come back home, is they say that. Whatever you learned, got a chance to apply it several years later, not immediately. That's also a learning in life. So got my first industry career, and then later I worked for Wyeth Pharmaceuticals, or Wyeth Research. Now it's later it's acquired by Pfizer in 2009. So I worked for Wyeth until 2008 at Pearl River, New York, and then 2008 I got an opportunity to work for DuPont in India, because DuPont was setting up an R&D center in Hyderabad. My son was in middle school and my daughter was in second grade, finishing first grade. So that gave me an opportunity to come back to Hyderabad with my family. That was never planned. All of a sudden that opportunity came. I came back to, so I left pharma. I went to materials company, and then I changed the country. So I changed the industry, I changed the company, I changed the country. All these things happened, but all of a sudden, I didn't know. We jumped into it, and then me and my wife, a lot of relearning happened in India. But always this opportunity with science, staying in science and technology was always there. So after DuPont changed, after leading the industrial biotechnology for DuPont for a short time, 2.5 years, they changed their business direction. So I went to Indian Immunologicals, and then to lead the vaccines R&D there, the veterinary as well as the human vaccines development. Then after 2.5 years later, again there was some huge management change there. So, but BE approached me to start lead their vaccines. Just before I left DuPont. That time I said no, I cannot come. I will think about it a few years later. Then 2.5 years later, I came back to BE to start developing the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine and human papillomavirus vaccine and other vaccines. Basically to establish an R&D, strong R&D with basic science, strong science. So in biological E, I started with about 7 or 8 people in R&D.
Okay.
And they showed a commitment to establish R&D labs.
So this was for the R&D?
This was in R&D.
Vaccine R&D?
Vaccines R&D.
Oh, okay.
In 2013, I moved to biological E. But it took some time. But they were building, renovating the R&D labs. So we had to give up the science lab space. We couldn't do much. But end of the year, 2013, the beginning of 2014, we got the R&D labs set up, the new equipment and the new labs. So we started working on pneumococcal conjugate vaccine that time. And this journey started at BA in 2014, around February. So we started on this project. It's a very complex vaccine in the field itself, and every company outside the US or within the US also wanted to develop this vaccine, or at least should be there in their portfolio. But none of them were able to take it into the clinical trials. So it's a complex. So to get on to develop this vaccine, it was also a little bit of big unknown. So challenges are there. So we started on the journey, but in the whole process, we built strong science. If you understand scientifically, I was very confident, but it does not mean that it doesn't mean anything, because the investors, the owners of the company invested in us, and then we started small, then incrementally added the talent, attracted the talent to develop the different aspects of the vaccine development, polysaccharides, microbial strains, polysaccharide fermentations, downstream, all the technologies, multiple technologies are required. So we developed all the technologies in-house with our own science, no external consultants or technologies borrowed or licensed, other than bacterial strains licensed, because we have to do that. There is no other way to get around it. And but we developed everything from the scratch.
Wow.
And multiple technologies were developed. We filed a lot of patents. And some of the technologies, no one else had it. other than the MNCs, the two MNCs that had this product already approved by then. There is so far 3 MNCs in the US or Europe, one in Europe, 2 in the US got a product approved, but only 2 products are strong. The third company is not doing very well because some product weakness in it. But we have developed a 14-valent pneumococcal conjugate vaccine that even WHO wanted to have at least one supplier from the developing Asian countries to supply this product. It's a global need. In India, if you say there is a 75 infant deaths or children below 5 years die every year because of this bacterial infection. This bacteria can cause pneumonia, middle ear infections, meningitis, and many other invasive pneumococcal disease, what they call lung infections.
Okay.
So if it is not treated on time, it is fatal. And then if you take the 70,000 deaths per day per hour, every 7 minutes one child dies because of this disease. Every 7 minutes one child below 5 years in India. So it is an immensely satisfying to develop a vaccine like this. But on this journey, there are my team. I acknowledge the contributions of different functional leads in my team. They also have contributed enormously for the success of this project. They brought their own strength, and so within 8 years we got this product approved in India, licensed in India. However, we quickly made a lot of progress up to phase 2 clinical trials in India. And then getting ready for a phase 3 clinical trials is a totally different ball game because everything you have to scale up, regulatory compliances will be there. So we met all those, but designing the clinical trials, we were asked, what is your confidence that you would succeed in this? The reason is, for this vaccine approval, you have to use an already approved vaccine as a comparator and then demonstrate that your product is not inferior to the already approved product on the market. And that product had to be one of the MNCs established in the US. That product we had to use as a comparator and then demonstrate non-inferiority. So the strong science, what we have used, the level of quality we established, we understood the confidence level we had. With that, we were very confident that we would go to we can demonstrate the non-inferiority. Our product is as good as the approved MNC's product. That was the intention. But later, we were questioned. There were a lot of skeptics on that. We addressed everybody's concern, what our logic was on this, success of this project. We developed so many analytical methods. My team, one of my functional leads, developed all those things. We created a team would understand the science and then develop everything on our own with a very little or not much of help from outside.
Correct.
Same way for technologies development, because there are 14 different antigens are there. We need to have you cannot have 14 different whole processes. One process, everything could be forced into that.
Correct.
That was the strategy we took. That's why we were able to make a quick progress in the development of the vaccine. So in 2016, we conducted our phase 1 clinical trial. 2017, we conducted our phase 2. By 2018, we completed the phase 2 clinical trial and then sent ready to send our clinical trial summary report. But for phase 3 clinical material, we need to manufacture the product at the commercial scale, which is like a thousands of liter, multi-thousand liter fermenters would be there. So while we were developing our product, the company owners also had to invest in building a facility, to that commercial capacity, to have the commercial capacity. In the process, we also approached Indian Department of Biotechnology, BIRAC, gave us a loan to build a facility, which we built. That loan amount is repayable. We had to the company repays it. We already repaid now. But with that facility, we designed our commercial supply. So it's at least not less than 100 million doses per year capacity, because we would like to supply this vaccine not only to India, but all other developing countries also. That is an opportunity. So with that, we got our phase 3 clinical trial conducted during the time of the COVID. So our clinical trials team had to go to the sites, clinical trial sites, ensure things are fine. They took a lot of risk middle of the COVID. So it's what I'm trying to say is everyone in R&D in the company contributed one way or the other. Multiple people, multiple departments. So in 2022 August and June we submitted our phase 3 clinical trial completed application to Indian government. And September we got end of August I believe we got a subject expert committee review and approval recommendation to supply this product. And DCGI inspected our facility, commercial facility. By December of 2022 we got a commercial facility to manufacture the product approval also we received. So the entire journey for this product is 2014 to end of 2022. Within 8 years we achieved this.
I think that is
product.
quick, very fast.
Very fast for 8 years for
others,
a complex product like this. 8 years is a significant. Even though we thought we were late based on our aggressive plan, we were late by 1 year because of COVID and other regulatory approvals. But at least even 8 years, if you take, it's a significant achievement.
Amazing.
But in the whole process, what we did is we built a talent, capability to take up any concept from any vaccine development, from idea concept to all the way to completion of phase 3 clinical trials and get a regulatory approval. So it's a very broad capability we set up.
Amazing.
In the company, and in the whole process personally it is very gratifying, satisfying for me. Reason is I lived in the US for 20 years. My children were born and grew up there until middle school, and then we came back. So the main difference is until I finished my PhD, I paid very minimal to Indian government for my education. Until my college also, the fee we paid is very nominal. So the government helped us get our education. And during PhD time, I got a CSR fellowship. Even that is there even now also. So that means government is paying scholarship to get a degree, to you to get a degree. This is one way to pay back to the country as well as much more beyond globally. So my education in India and what I learned in career in the US all came together. There is it's made a payback to the society. That's another personal gratification.
I think that was my next question, because spending 20 years in US at that time and coming back to India is going to be a very tough decision, because for people leaving that comfort zone and coming back to India when pharma is not that booming yet, because I'm sure I think in 2007-8 pharma was not that great the way we are talking about today.
Yes,
right.
That is true.
That was a very huge risk you took. And second thing, your children were in schools, they were having a different life altogether, and then coming back to Hyderabad, that time Hyderabad, I'm sure not that great the way today we have.
The Begumpet airport was still open that time.
Exactly.
Now the new airport.
You required a huge desire or some.
That was an emotional decision for me and my wife to come back, and then it's attachment. And also we wanted our children to see the living experience rather than just a visitor experience. It's not always thing. So I wanted them to see the life here. Struggles here. There are struggles in the US also. It's not nowhere there is a free lunch. Let me put it this way. However, the difficulties or the day-to-day limitations are different for each country. What you have here, you will not have there. What you have there, you will not have here. You cannot live here and expect the
so grass is always greener on other side. That's the way we are looking at it.
You need to adjust to the local conditions. That's the important thing. But overall, it's a very gratifying experience. But in the whole process, we have taken up other vaccines also. For example, I'll just mention it. Human polyomavirus vaccine, which is the virus that infects or comes up in people, not infects. Everybody has it. But the moment a person's immune system is down, mostly it happens in kidney transplant patients. This virus is there in the environment because once they get an organ transplant, solid organ transplants, what we call, once they get it, physicians have to treat them with immune suppressing steroids so that the organ is not rejected because it's a foreign organ. But in the whole process, what happens, the immune system is also weakened. The innate latent viruses, they resurface, affecting the organ and the health of the recipient. So in that process, human polyoma virus is one of them, those viruses. It specifically targets the kidneys. So we in-licensed a technology that was developed, concept was developed, but now it was not licensed. No industry showed interest in NIH in the US. So I came across that product sitting on the shelf. So the scientists who developed, one day we were talking. So then I thought we brought it in here, we would fully develop it. So we in-licensed it exclusively, and then we developed. It's also one of the complex vaccines, virus VLP based vaccines. And we have completed the preclinical biology, preclinical development. Now we are developing manufacturing the clinical trial material for that vaccine. If it is successful, this is a novel vaccine. Globally, no other MNC also does not have a similar vaccine in their pipeline.
Sure.
So that we would like to develop it. And we also have the pneumococcal conjugate next generation vaccines. Then we have several other viral vaccines. But so in the whole process, we established all the different platforms in the field of vaccines, including mRNA. We established very recently. So we have preclinical studies going on now, proof of concepts developed. So that's where we are today.
So as R&D head, so of course when we look at the global expenditure on the R&D, right, on the pharma particularly also, globally average is very high, maybe 3%, 4%, 5%. But when it comes to the India, it is almost like 1.2% kind of stuff. How you look at the R&D growing in India? What is the outlook? What is your say on it?
That's an interesting question. I'm glad that you asked me that question. So my answer is going to be a little bit broader.
Yeah, sure.
So in India, there is always a burning desire to be good or the best in science and technology. You take any field, IIScs, engineering institutes, management institutes, everywhere you see it, they would like to be very strong in science. And then we are strong in chemistry, mathematics and physics. Biology we were weak, let me put it this way, not that great, but even though biology was there. Same as space research aspirations were there too. However, in India, the talent is there, intellectual pool is there, but needs direction. Since 2008, I moved. Later, there is the landscape itself has changed, where commitment to invest in R&D and a local in-house R&D based product development, that mentality, mindset has changing. That to say that we need to invest in R&D to develop new products, new markets, improvise products, and so on. So that I have seen in materials company like DuPont in India, as well as many other local pharma and biopharma companies too. So to answer your question more specifically, the percentage wise it may be different, because we should not look at percentage wise, the quantity wise, and also Indian government, Department of Science and Technology, Department of by DBT, DST, the government also encouraging through grants to get started in R&D, invest in R&D, develop the technology, support clinical trials through different mechanisms. So that also has developed. So if you look at all these things, there is an encouraging atmosphere now. If you look at overall, yes, we are much less in terms of the dollar numbers or the currency number compared to the US and Europe, but we are much better off 10 years ago than now. In terms of multifold interest and investment in R&D that happened. Private investment firms are coming, but always biotechnology is a challenging field, not only here, even in the US and Europe also. Because of the regulatory unknown, return on investment, success of the product is very different. In case of vaccines, the success rate is high, but overall percentage wise, 3 or 4% of the vaccines get approved. But 30 or 40% is success rate compared to pharma. Pharma is like very less.
Right.
So it's a slightly different thing.
So and here nowadays CROs are growing a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So people are outsourcing research facilities and everything. So what is the outlook on this front?
CRO or a CDMO also they say. In India, they have a pretty good outlook. There is a report out in the US very recently. with the new developments you see in biology, technology development, computational power, data analysis, artificial intelligence, and there's a glut of information, I would say, in biology coming in. So you need a lot more processing of this information, also testing. So when you have to test your candidates in the US, there is a beyond the local capacity. Also, India stepped up in terms of the quality of the service provision, providing the service, and it is less, at least 30 to 50% less compared to the US, same activity done in the US and Europe. So that's one of the reasons there is a good, pretty good, strong growth in CRO and CDMO business in India.
Sure.
And compared to the US. US also it is there, but it is, everybody is fully busy. So it's a good position to be in. So
Yes,
it is
exactly.
a good development for
Fantastic.
India.
Okay, let me come back to the R&D part once again. So, as R&D head, how are you looking at digital transformation, integrating deep tech technologies in the research area?
Two parts to your question.
Yeah.
Digitalization is always a good thing to have. However, it is change management is required. We are actively looking into going to digitalization and electronic lab notebooks, electronic capture of everything. In fact, when I was at DuPont, that was already initiated in 2009-10, that time itself. But the entire pharma industry to pick up that, it's a phase wise. You cannot just do it overnight. And it's a change management, culture management, facilities, investment, and data storage, capture, and no data breach. Many other things have to be put in place these days. And if you see in COVID time, there's a lot of hackers hacking into pharma industry, things that unpleasant things happen.
Sure.
So, but digitalization is always a good thing as long as it is protected. Gives an advantage, readily review and analysis of the information. But it's a challenge. It's not an easy thing to implement because traditionally people have been used to the hard paper data entries. That has to be transformed into digitalization.
Correct.
People have to be trained, especially in science and technology. A lot of activity, data is distributed onto hard paper, different instruments that has to be linked and then captured and then put in one place. So that's the challenge. And then that has to happen every day.
Right.
And then it has to be backed up and then protected. So these are all different issues in that, but that can be addressed. Some pharma companies, only commercial manufacturing is digitalized, fully digitalized. That's easier to do, but then R&D. R&D also has to be done, but it's a slow process. But there is a good value for that.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. And what about the deep tech?
Yeah, deep tech is another thing. All this information coming up, we need to have, I'm looking into deep tech linked to artificial intelligence. I'm going into that section. So data analysis, artificial intelligence, the systems for the brain with algorithms is one thing. Quality of information you upload to get it analyzed compared with something else is another thing.
Right.
So it is a stepwise process. Probably artificial intelligence wise, it's too far advanced, and for India it has to mature. But again, AI for biology, vaccine development, and each field, each sector is different. For example, if you want to use AI for different marketing strategies, psyche of customers, that is different. It can be readily doable.
Correct.
But a hard science and technology wise, people, industry like vaccines and biotherapeutics, it is slightly different ball game. But AI is much more powerful, useful, always as a positive effect for us also, for a vaccine development also.
Sure. Perfect. I think there are a lot of things which AI is bringing on the table.
Yes.
And I think there are a lot of innovation also happening around the industry in that. So there are so many pharma professionals who want to get into R&D, but they are really not having the right path. How to get into it, right? So what would be your message to them? How they should look at as a career?
Okay. So to answer your question more precisely, people who after their masters they get into R&D, after their PhD they get into R&D. So always try to do your best, and don't ever compromise with small things, and then your ethics. Have keep your integrity. In order to do that, you should associate yourself with accomplished people in the field, whatever field it is. It's could be engineering, science, biology, or medical field, healthcare field, whatever it is. But always try to do your best. Be the best person in what you do, in whatever you do, like what you do. Money always will come a little bit later, but not necessarily focused on money. These days, money is important because cost of living is going up. So hopefully industry compensates people accordingly. So in that case, cost of living issue would go away. But be the best in what you do, you will be successful. That's my message.
Fantastic. That's a really great message. Thanks a lot, doctor. Thanks for coming on Pharma Now and sharing your insights.
Thanks for giving me that opportunity. I'm glad I met you.
No, pleasure is mine. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you.